In this section, we will be discussing adding data to our database. Once a database has been established and normalized tables identified with the necessary fields, the next obvious step is to add real data into the columns. Adding records into our tables is what IT people refer to as populating the database. To enter data accurately and quickly into an Access database, it helps to understand a few basics on how a database works. An Access database is not a file in the same sense as Microsoft Word document or PowerPoint or Excel, but instead a collection of objects, tables, forms, reports, queries, and so on, that must work together for a database to function properly. In addition, these objects must adhere to a set of design principles, or the database will either work poorly or fail altogether. In turn, these design principles affect how you enter data. Normalization, referential integrity, functional dependencies, keys, redundancies are a few of the recommended design principles. We have accomplished all that is necessary in the preceding sections. Next is to add records into our tables. There are a variety of ways of doing this. 1. Using the Datasheet View. 2. Creating a form for data entry. 3. Importing or linking to data located in a variety of sources, including other Access databases, Excel worksheets, text files, Word documents, and lists on servers running Microsoft SharePoint. We will exclusively use the Datasheet View that comes with Access 2016 and later show how we can import a file using Microsoft Excel. I'm going to start by creating a new database. So I'm going right to the beginning, as we have done in the past. Click the blank database icon and add a file name for our database, and I'm going to call it cust order. I'll go with the default folder, click the create button, and what is common, of course, we're in the Datasheet View. The Datasheet View is good for inputting the data, but not necessarily useful for setting up the fields and table names. So what I will do is I will go into the fields and change from a Datasheet View to a Design View. I'll give the table name because I'm going to be entering customer fields. So I will call it the customer table and input now the field names and the data types for each one of these. So we're in the Design View, and in the first field we'll use the default name ID with a data type order number. The advantage to this is that it's the primary key for our customer table, and it will be automatically generating starting with an ID value of 1 and subsequent ones incremented by 1. So it'll start off with ID number 1, ID number 2, ID number 3, and it will be done for us automatically. And we'll see how that works a little bit later. Let's click on the second field, and in the second field I want first name to be my field name, and the data type is going to be short text. In the third field I want last name, and again short text, and let's just correct that spelling. And I'll go into the third field name, and this is going to be street address. Again, I'll default the data type, which pops up as short text, followed by city, and again short text. And where I'm living at the moment is in the provinces of Canada, so I'll call my next field province. And instead of short text, I'm going to use a Lookup Wizard. And the business where I'm working in is in Ontario, but also I do business for this customer table in Quebec. So what I will do is I will type in the values that I want, and I'm going to have 2 columns, and the first column is going to be Ontario, and I'll tab over and use Quebec as my second column. And in this way, of course, the user can only click on either Ontario and Quebec, which is what I want, because that's where this customer table does business. Next, we're going to use these available fields. I want it limited to the list that I've supplied, i.e. Ontario and Quebec, and I'll click Finish. Next, I need a postal code for Canada. Again, default to short text. I need an email from the customer, short text, and a phone number. And that's the information I want to capture. So we are now completed this this design view. So I will save that, and the table name is customer, comprised of these fields. We want to now add some values or some data to these particular fields that we've just identified, and at the moment we're in the design view. The best place to enter data is in the Datasheet view. So what I will do is I will come out of the design view and go into the Datasheet view, which is a far better place to enter data and the records that we need. We need to focus initially on the first name and then input the data, last name, street address, and so on. As I mentioned, the ID is a primary key, and that should be automatically generated starting with ID equals 1, and subsequent records and rows will be incremented by 1. So let's now focus by hitting the tab key into the first field, or the second field under first name. I'll enter the first person in my customer field. Tab the first name, and as you can see, the ID 1 has been automatically generated, which is exactly what we wanted. Last name for Tracy is Beckham. Hit the tab. I'll enter her address. Again, the tab key to get over to the city, which is in Toronto. Tab again to identify the province, and here we have a drop down, and if you recall, we entered 2 provinces, and I want the person who's inputting to select, in this case, Ontario, and the postal code K0A1L0. Tab over to the email address, and Tracy's email address is beck@email.com. Tab her phone number 905-332-2314. Tab over again, and I'm back at the ID view. Again, I don't have to input anything, and hopefully it will increment the ID and pick up 2. So I'll hit the ID and I'll put in the second person, who is Lucinda. Again, tab over, and yes, it's generated ID number 2, and the last name is George, and Lucinda's address is 789 Brewer Street. Nice and easy using this Datasheet view. Hamilton, and tab over, and for those who know already, but others will tap in Ontario with a postal code 2R5. Tab over to her Lucinda's email address. and tab over. And I think you're getting the idea on how easy this is to implement the values under each one of the fields. As we mentioned earlier in the beginning of this lecture, there are other ways of populating tables with data. Let's consider importing a table from Microsoft Excel into our database. So let us go to Access. And what we will do is click on External Data, New Source Data from a file, and the file will be an Excel file. A dialog box comes up, and the first requirement is to identify exactly where the import is coming from. And here is a file name, but assumedly we have to browse and locate this customer file. So here we'll look at the file, locate it, and I've called it customers only so that you can see all the records in the file. So I'll select this, and this is the file I'm going to import into Access. And what we'll do is import the source data into a new table in the current database. We'll click OK. And we notice that the first row in the Excel spreadsheet that we will be downloading has a column heading, but the column headings in the first row are just that and not the data. So we'll click this. Okay. Next. So the field name, ID, and do we want this index? Yes, we do. Duplicates are allowed? I don't think so. We don't want duplication on the ID number. And let Access add the primary key. Well, we can choose our own primary key if we wish, which I think I shall do that. And specify that the ID for this particular customer's table will be the ID. And we'll call this customers instead of customer, just to differentiate between what we did with the first two records in our last section of our lecture. And we'll finish this off. And we'll save the import steps. And let's have a look at this new customers table. And here we are.